It's night at the museum. Inside the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, the last visitor has left. The dinosaurs are alone. The giant North Atlantic right whale has only guards for company. But on this night, something strange is happening. The most famous and mysterious diamond in the world is being taken from its bomb-proof cabinet. The Hope Diamond, at 45.5 carats, the biggest deep blue diamond in the world, is about to go under the drill and reveal its inner secrets. Hundreds of millions of atoms will be blasted out of it and open a window into a world over 1 billion years old.
The Hope Diamond is one of the world's most unique creations. It's a little bit like a meteorite that's fallen to the Earth from outer space.
The Hope Diamond does not only contain a scientific mystery, it has also spawned a legendary curse.
It's got this fabulously complicated and dramatic history. There were so many twists and turns and dramatic events and horrible deaths along the way.
Behind the Hope Diamond lies one of the greatest heists in history. A glittering American heiress struck by tragedy. An executed king and queen.
The idea that here's this diamond that has touched the neck of Marie Antoinette, that was stolen from an idol in India and has this magical power.
A precious stone casting riddles of science, history, and legend. This is the astonishing story of the Hope Diamond. The Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Here, protected by a thick layer of bullet and bomb-proof glass, lies one of the most visited exhibits on the planet. It attracts as many visitors as the Mona Lisa. What makes the Hope Diamond so special and alluring is its unique combination of size, near-perfect clarity, and deep blue color. It towers over the single-carat diamond typical of an engagement ring. But the Hope also contains one mysterious property that is the subject of a long-running scientific puzzle. One night in the late 1960s, scientists in South Africa placed the Hope Diamond under ultraviolet light. Nothing happened until the light was switched off. Then, extraordinarily, the diamond emitted an almost supernatural red glow. It continued to glow for up to 2 minutes, a length of time never seen before. Jeff Post, curator of the National Gem Collection, has studied the Hope for 2 decades.
This glow was something that clued us into the idea that there had to be something about this diamond that made it different than most other diamonds. We've never seen this intensity in any other diamond.
But what was that something creating this mysterious red glow? Some believe the answer could be found in history or even in legend. But for the Smithsonian's experts, it was a question that only science could solve. The first stage of their investigation was to go right back in time to planet Earth billions of years ago. What eventually became the Hope Diamond was first created around 100 miles below the surface of the Earth, in a layer called the upper mantle. Like every other diamond, it began life as a cluster of carbon atoms. It was then subjected to extreme pressure and heat and formed into a rigid crystal shape called a diamond lattice. This diamond crystal was propelled to the surface by a small but violent volcanic eruption. The molten rock cooled and solidified, encasing the diamond. Over millions of years, the volcanic rock eroded, releasing the Hope Diamond to be washed along rivers, finally coming to rest in the subcontinent of India. And that was where, in the mid-17th century, the largest blue diamond the world had ever seen was first discovered by a European adventurer.
There's nothing else like it that's ever been produced in the Earth. So why this one big blue diamond? Well, that is an enigma. You know, why did the Earth do that in this one time, this one place?
The Hope Diamond was about to embark on a 350-year journey. It would pose a set of riddles which encompass science, history, and a legendary curse. In the early 20th century, that curse became a world sensation. At the center of events was a famous American heiress, Evelyn Walsh McLean. In 1910, Evelyn and her husband Ned were on holiday in Paris. There they were approached by one of the world's most famous jewelers, Pierre Cartier, a man on constant lookout for well-heeled customers. Cartier told Evelyn an amazing story. He'd recently acquired a diamond of unparalleled color, size, and beauty, and with a history to send shivers up the spine. The explorer who discovered it, he said, had stolen it from the eye of a Hindu goddess in an Indian temple. He'd then been ripped apart by wild dogs and died. Ever since, there'd been a curse on whoever owned the diamond. A French queen had worn it and been beheaded at the guillotine. The next owners, one of the richest families in Europe, would be plunged into financial ruin. But far from scaring Evelyn away, Pierre Cartier's story only whetted her desire for the diamond.
Evelyn was totally taken by Cartier's story. I think she was entranced by it. Cartier stage managed it so beautifully. So he was telling the story and all the time holding in front of him this package with the diamond in it.
For Cartier, Evelyn was a prime catch. She had money. But when he finally opened the package, she didn't like the way the diamond was set. Cartier went away, and 2 months later brought her the diamond in a new setting. Evelyn agreed the deal. She'd buy the Hope Diamond for $180,000, over $4 million in today's money. But there was one proviso. If the legendary curse brought anything terrible within the next 6 months, she'd get her money back. Evelyn Walsh McLean's life had been a true rags-to-riches story. She was born in 1886, the daughter of a gold miner who struck it rich in Colorado. At the age of 22, Evelyn married Ned McLean, whose family owned banks, a railway, and the Washington Post newspaper. Buying the Hope Diamond was the most exciting moment yet in the spectacular life of Evelyn and Ned. Evelyn owned many houses. The largest one still standing is a fabulous mansion which was once the most expensive property in Washington, D.C. Today it's the home of the Indonesian embassy, and Evelyn's great-grandson, Joseph Gregory, has come to visit the place where, in her doomed, rich innocence, she bestrode her world.
When you first walk into the entry hallway of the house, you see the Tiffany glass that's in the middle of the entry hallway. Now, how many people during that time would have something like that? Not even the President of the United States could afford something like that.
She became, over time, really the hostess in Washington. So she would have dinners with hundreds of people where the Metropolitan Opera Company from New York would come to Washington as the entertainment. She would have parties and receptions where she'd import flowers from Europe. She was amazing and spent a huge fortune.
Celebrities, politicians, even the American president, Warren G. Harding, all flocked to Evelyn's parties, knowing they were in for an unforgettable night with the Hope Diamond at the center, on a most unusual mount.
She had a Great Dane named Mike, and Mike would sometimes wear the Hope Diamond.
Now, Evelyn always trusted her Great Dane to roam around the grounds, not just inside the house, wearing the necklace. If she wanted to call Mike, she would whistle out the window, call Mike in, and Mike would bring the diamond to her, wearing it.
Evelyn never believed that the Hope Diamond curse would strike her. But nearly 10 years after she first laid eyes on the diamond, her fairy tale life would be shattered. Death and disaster would strike her family. It was a series of events that would cement the idea of a curse in the popular imagination. Throughout history, the Hope Diamond, the largest deep blue diamond in the world, has been the subject of a legendary curse. But what was fact and what was legend? One thing was certain. In the mid-17th century, a French explorer, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, travelled to India in search of precious gemstones. At that time, India was the only place in the world where diamonds had been discovered. Dr. Omar Khalidi has studied Tavernier's own account of his travels to a place called Golconda.
It was a time when the kingdom of Golconda was at the height of its prosperity and the center of the world gem trade. And the purpose of Tavernier's journey was to buy diamonds for the royalty and nobility of France.
Tavernier told an extraordinary story about an idol in a temple he visited.
The great idol on the altar has 2 diamonds for his eyes, and the smallest of these diamonds weighs about 40 carats.
Tavernier then recorded that a local Indian jeweler had extracted a diamond from one of the idol's eyes and had then been horribly punished.
As he was about to leave in the morning, this thief, they say, died at the door, and the idol performed this miracle as a punishment of sacrilege.
There was an added danger from this stolen diamond. It was blue.
Diamonds had significance beyond wealth. White diamonds were signs of prosperity. Red diamonds were associated with bravery, whereas the blue diamonds were associated with misfortunes, ill omen, bad luck, and so forth.
On December the 6th, 1668, Tavernier appeared at the French court in Versailles, carrying an enormous blue diamond. There was no record of him revealing where or how he'd obtained it. Tavernier's client was Europe's most illustrious king, Louis XIV of France. For historian Lucy Worsley, Tavernier's glittering diamonds were the perfect match for the monarch who called himself the Sun King.
When Louis XIV was here, this room was full of light through the windows, from the mirrors, from the candles, from the silver furniture, and also from the king himself and the diamonds that he might have been wearing. The Hall of Mirrors at Versailles is the center of Louis XIV's world, and it's got 357 mirrors in here. And you can imagine all the candles reflecting in the mirrors and creating more light than anyone had yet seen at night before. It was the most illuminated room in history up till that point.
Louis was the biggest spender of the age. He single-handedly sparked the world's obsession with diamonds.
Louis XIV really created the market in diamonds. Up until him, the jewel that everyone had wanted was the pearl. Pearls were the thing. But suddenly, Tavernier arrives from India with all of these fabulous new stones, and Louis XIV buys 40 big ones and 1,200 little ones, has them cut, starts wearing them. Suddenly, everyone wants diamonds. They're the new craze.
Tavernier grew very rich from this new craze, netting the equivalent of nearly $10 million for his Indian diamonds. But the most desirable of all, and Louis's favourite, was an enormous 112-carat dark blue.
This table that's included within the book shows drawings of quite a lot of the diamonds that Tavernier sold to Louis XIV. And this one here, the biggest one, this is the stone that will become the Hope Diamond.
But the fastidious Louis was not fully satisfied with the diamond Tavernier had brought him. He wanted to change its shape into something even more dazzling. By this time, the technique behind achieving the maximum movement of light through a diamond had become highly skilled. Louis's court jeweler made hundreds of tiny cuts into the diamond to create 63 new faces, known as facets. In the process, he shrank it by nearly half to just over 67 carats. The remodeled diamond, one of the most valuable in Europe, would become known as the French blue. Over the next 100 years, the blue diamond was set into one of the French crown jewels' most valuable pieces. But by the end of the 18th century, time was running out for the decadent French royals. And for the Queen, Marie Antoinette, diamonds would not turn out to be a girl's best friend.
Marie Antoinette, she, like Louis XIV, just loved diamonds, couldn't get enough of them. And she was famous for it, and she was quite often criticised for that and her shopping and her gambling and all the parties that she had.
In July 1789, public anger spilled over into full-blown revolution against the all-powerful King Louis XVI and his diamond-loving queen. Pierre Cartier would later relish telling Evelyn Walsh McLean that Marie Antoinette wore the French blue diamond around her delicate neck, a neck that would soon be chopped by the guillotine.
The speed of events escalates. The revolutionaries become more and more extreme. They decide to put the king and queen in prison, and then eventually...
The crown jewels were moved to this building, the Royal Warehouse, for safekeeping. But in the chaos of revolution, a gang of professional thieves saw an opportunity for one of the greatest heists in history. In early September 1792, the robbers climbed up the outside of the Royal Warehouse and broke into the jewel room. No one spotted them. Amazingly, the gang came back every night for the next week. By the end, they'd removed almost the entire collection of crown jewels, a haul worth $100 million today. As for the centerpiece, the French blue diamond with its 63 dazzling faces, it would never be seen again. So, what happened to it? In 1812, a mysterious blue diamond appeared in a jeweller's shop in London. No blue diamond so beautiful or large had ever been seen before, except the French blue, which had gone missing 20 years before. This new London diamond was documented in a memorandum authenticating its size and shape. But there was one obvious difference with the French blue. The new London blue was a completely different size.
The French blue is 67 carats, a little more than 67 carats. This gem is 44 carats. And the question is, at that time, in 1812, at the time of this memorandum, nobody was really asking whether these diamonds were the same. So this was thought to be just a new diamond.
The London Blue's next destination has never been proved, but the finger points to none other than the future British King, George IV.
It's just so tempting to think that George IV was the ideal purchaser. Who else could have afforded it? Who else would have wanted it? It just seems to fit. The pieces come together there. His love of diamonds, the fact that the most fabulous and rare blue diamond in the world is available in London. But what we don't have is any kind of documentation from the Royal Archives or connected with George personally saying, yep, I bought the diamond.
There was another piece of tantalising evidence that appeared to link George to the London blue diamond. A portrait painted a year after his coronation.
He's looking rather sober and serious here, but also a man of presence, I think. And he's wearing the Garter Star, and what looks like the Order of the Golden Fleece and what looks like a blue diamond in the middle of it there. He loves diamonds. George IV and diamonds just go together.
In 1830, George IV died. Shortly afterwards, the London Blue Diamond reappeared again in documented historical fact. It was bought by the man who would give the diamond its famous name, a wealthy British banker and philanthropist, Henry Philip Hope.
Hope really prized his diamonds as specimens rather than as jewels and gems. He really thought them almost like parts of the natural order, much actually as we think of them as an exhibit in a museum.
Since large blue diamonds were so rare, Henry Philip Hope designated this specimen #1 in his catalogue. In 1851, Hope's heir put what came to be known as the Hope Diamond on display at the Great Exhibition in London. It was a sensation.
It was a terrific show. For it was constructed the famous Crystal Palace, this huge glass pavilion designed by Joseph Paxton, and all the fruits of the empire and of British industry, everything that the world had to offer was on display there.
But a French gem expert now put forward an extraordinary theory. He suggested that the Hope Diamond, which had begun its public life in London in 1812, might be a recut version of the French Blue Diamond, which had disappeared in the revolutionary chaos of 1792 Paris. If that was so, it brought a stunning new twist to the story. A book written in 1823 made a startling claim about the diamond that would later be called the Hope.
Pretty clearly identical with the Hope Diamond. That's what that picture shows. Then he goes on to say, and this is key, it's now said to be in the possession of our most gracious sovereign.
But George IV could never have confessed to owning the French Blue Diamond, for fear of being exposed as a receiver of stolen goods from the French crown jewels. The theory that the Hope Diamond and the French Blue were one and the same gemstone would remain unproved until as recently as 2005, when a team of scientists finally solved the mystery. Using computer-aided geometry, they modelled both diamonds. They found that the Hope Diamond would have fitted snugly inside the French Blue. There was one incontrovertible conclusion. The French Blue had been carefully recut to create the diamond that appeared in London in 1812, the jewel which would later be named the Hope Diamond. So did those who possessed the diamond during this murky period suffer from the diamond's legendary curse? George IV certainly met an agonizing end. He died in pain, overweight, and suffering from gout. The fate of the Hope family was even nastier. After Henry Philip Hope died in 1839, a bitter family feud broke out.
He had 3 nephews. There were fights among them, vicious fights, because there's a lot of wealth wrapped up in this gem collection.
Generations on, 21-year-old Lord Francis Hope inherited the family estate, art collection, and the famous Blue Diamond. But he was about to meet an American showgirl, May Yohe. It all started happily enough.
He treated her extremely well. He wanted to impress this American gal. He actually was part owner of the Lyric Theatre in London, and he arranged for her to get a contract there and become a leading lady. He owned a newspaper, and he really promoted and marketed her because he wanted her to shine.
But for Lord Francis Hope, May Yohe turned out to be a ruinous extravagance. To maintain her lifestyle, he gambled away tens of millions of pounds, squandering the family fortune. In 1901, May left him and later took her revenge with a Hollywood movie of their life, blaming their downfall on the curse of the Blue Diamond.
May really saw herself as the center of the world, and the Hope Diamond helped promote that view. She was a woman, an actress, a dramatist, a dancer, a singer.
Penniless and his marriage in tatters, Lord Francis was forced to sell the Hope Diamond. For several years, the gemstone crisscrossed the Atlantic looking for a buyer, until finally, Pierre Cartier found Evelyn Walsh McLean. In her early years of owning it, the Hope Diamond had brought Evelyn nothing but pleasure. The curse was just a story. But then a series of tragedies struck her family and propelled the curse onto the world stage. While Evelyn was away at the Kentucky Derby, her 9-year-old son, Vincent, was playing near the road in front of their estate in northwest Washington. The boy ran out in front of a passing Ford Model T. He was knocked to the ground, his head smashing into the concrete.
Oh my God! What happened?
A few hours later, Vincent Walsh McLean died, and the family's misfortune became headline news.
Get some help, man!
And the next day in the papers, in the New York Times and following in other papers around the country, people speculated, was this yet another instance of the curse of the Hope Diamond?
Evelyn Walsh McLean's dream life was shattered in an instant.
It was probably one of the worst tragedies in her life. That's the start of it all. When Vincent passed away, it did tear her apart. She couldn't even put the funeral arrangements together.
After Vincent's death, the bad luck multiplied. The Washington Post went bankrupt, and the McLean family fortune was decimated. Evelyn's marriage fell apart. Her husband Ned ended up in an insane asylum, and their only daughter committed suicide at the age of 25. Was Evelyn simply unlucky, or, as many believed, was she the latest victim of a curse that had plagued the Hope Diamond's owners for centuries? Evelyn always insisted that she didn't believe in the legend, but when she died at 60 after a lifetime of tragedies, she'd become the embodiment of the curse. A lavish collection of jewels were put up for sale, with the Hope Diamond as the star attraction. Whether it was science, history, or legend, one thing seemed clear: the Hope Diamond was unlike any other. And the discovery in the 1960s of its mysterious red glow, or phosphorescence as scientists call it, only reinforced the mystery.
Why does it show this very intense phosphorescence that seemed to be unusual and perhaps even unique to the Hope Diamond?
To test whether the Hope really was a one-off, Jeff Post needed to compare it with other blue diamonds, but blues are very rare. Jeff and his associate, Eloise Gaillou, traveled to New York City's Diamond District to the one man he knew could help, a dealer, Alan Bronstein.
We've gotten together about 90 blue diamonds for him, which have a variety of shades and have a variety of saturations and grayness modifications. So that's a large number of blue diamonds to have in one place to study at one time.
The chance to test so many blue diamonds was a perfect opportunity for Jeff and Eloise. Using a spectrometer to measure the wavelengths of light, they flooded the stones with ultraviolet. When they turned off the light, their instrument picked up the phosphorescent glow. The results were striking and conclusive.
We were surprised to see that in all of the blue diamonds that we've looked at so far, and it's approaching 80 blue diamonds, all of them show a phosphorescence.
But while phosphorescence was universal in blue diamonds, each one turned out to have its own distinctive red and blue-green signature, sometimes predominantly red like the Hope. The Hope Diamond glowed far more intensely and longer than any of the smaller diamonds. But why? The only way to answer that with a substance as strong as a diamond seemed almost unthinkable: to drill. For centuries, the Hope Diamond had been for decoration. Now it was turning into an artifact for scientific exploration. But how had it first found its way to the Smithsonian? That was yet another twist in its extraordinary journey. After Evelyn Walsh McLean, the next owner was a New York diamond merchant, better known for dressing Hollywood movie stars, Harry Winston.
Harry Winston lived for diamond. He wanted also to acquire not only the Hope, but other stones that were part of the estate.
Many thought that Harry Winston would simply remount the Hope Diamond and find a new buyer. But he knew it would now be a hard sell. Instead, Winston dreamt up an act of extraordinary philanthropy. He would donate the Hope Diamond to the Smithsonian Institution. Given its incredible value, he might have been expected to send the priceless diamond in an armored car. But Winston conceived an outrageous publicity stunt. He mailed it by regular post.
Now, today, here came a brown paper wrapped package sent by registered mail for $152 postage.
Winston's unusual delivery method ensured news coverage throughout the country.
A gift to the Smithsonian worth $1 million, the Hope Diamond, the biggest blue diamond in the world.
The jewel was placed in a specially designed safe where the public could view it through security glass.
With the Hope Diamond coming here, Harry Winston's vision started to unfold. That is to build a great national gem collection. As he liked to say, we don't have a king and queen, but we should have our crown jewels.
The Hope triggered a stunning series of gifts that transformed the Smithsonian's National Gem Collection into a world-class showpiece. But in the popular imagination, it was the curse that still dominated.
Over the centuries, the diamond has acquired an unsavory reputation as a producer of bad luck.
And then the curse appeared to claim another victim, the postman, James Todd. Within a year of delivering the Hope to the Smithsonian, Todd was injured by a truck. His wife died and his house burned down. But for Jeff Post, all the curse stories are pure fantasy. For 50 years, the Hope Diamond has brought the Smithsonian nothing but good luck and fascinating scientific puzzles like the mysterious red glow.
Almost ironically, the story that people think about when they think about the Hope Diamond is they think about India, King Louis XIV, 15th, 16th, King George, Hope, Evelyn Walsh McLean. But you know, it's only the last 350 years of its story that encompasses. In fact, in many ways, the more incredible part of the Hope Diamond story is the one that started perhaps 2 or 3 billion years ago, deep in the Earth's upper mantle.
It's 7:30 p.m. at the National Museum of Natural History. The last members of the public are leaving. The Smithsonian's treasures are put to bed for the night, with one exception. On this night, Jeff Post will remove the Hope Diamond from the fortress of its cabinet and subject it to an audacious experiment.
The goal of doing this work isn't to try to dispel a curse. The goal is to learn about the Hope Diamond and its history and its origin.
Jeff prepares to take the jewel to a secret room in the heart of the museum.
So that's the flat little facet on the back side of the nut. Well, that's very convenient that they put that there for us, okay?
Once inside the lab, the jewel is taken out of its setting and the scientists get to work. Jeff is about to do the unthinkable, drill into the Hope Diamond to extract atoms and determine its chemical composition.
Who would have thought the French blue diamond would be studied in such a way?
To drill into the diamond, Jeff's team is using a time-of-flight mass spectrometer. It's an instrument more commonly used to test drugs and other chemical substances. For example, for traces of contaminants like steroids. Jeff and his team are about to open a window into a world more than 1 billion years old, when the diamond was created. The instrument fires beams of tiny particles called gallium ions onto the surface of the Hope Diamond. The ions blast a crater from which hundreds of millions of atoms are sucked back into the machine, where they're split and sorted by weight.
That sounds a bit destructive. And in fact, it is a little bit of a destructive process. Blasting is perhaps too strong a word, but it gives you the idea. It'll be gouging or blasting a small, little tiny crater into the diamond. It will sort of drill down through the surface into the next several layers of atoms, knocking out some of those atoms, and we will be making a very tiny little hole in the Hope Diamond.
While the results of the drilling were being analyzed, there was one final puzzle to be solved, which would nail the billion-year history of the Hope Diamond. Where exactly had it first come from? The Hope Diamond had first been brought from India to France in the 17th century by French explorer Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. But where had Tavernier found it? In his record of his travels, Tavernier described a diamond mine at Kalore, a village lying on a bend on one of India's longest rivers, the Krishna.
It is a plain where the mine is situated and the diamonds are found. Among others, the Great Diamond, which weighed 900 carats before cutting.
From 100 miles beneath the Earth's surface, the Hope had traveled to a few feet beneath the soil, where even today local villagers still look for diamonds with their bare hands. In amongst the dirt and gravel and other gemstones scattered around, the Hope Diamond was simply sitting there near the surface, waiting for someone to find it and propel it to fame. Two months later in Washington, the drilling has left that same Hope Diamond with 6 tiny holes on one of its faces. Hundreds of millions of atoms have been extracted and analyzed, and what the scientists have discovered is the presence of an element called boron, a basic building block of nature, found, for example, in soap. But there's just a tiny amount of it, ranging from a half-part boron to 1 million parts carbon in some parts of the diamond, and to 8 parts boron to 1 million parts carbon in others. It's boron that makes the Hope Diamond blue, but its uneven distribution gives a new insight into that blueness.
The Hope Diamond probably isn't uniformly blue. What we're seeing with the eye is actually a summation of all of the blue, different shades of blue in the diamond, sort of a mosaic of blues in a sense, and that the blue color varies slightly with the concentration, the amounts of boron that are present.
But the most significant outcome of the experiment is to show how it's the boron atoms acting with carbon and another kind of atom in the diamond that are producing the mysterious red glow. When an ultraviolet light ray passes through the diamond, it strikes a carbon atom and spins off an electron, which gets trapped in the other atom. At the same time, a positive charge spins off from the carbon atom and gets trapped in the boron. Attracted by the positive charge, the electron jumps to the boron atom. It's believed that this collision causes the burst of red light. This process happens over and over, and in the Hope's diamond lattice, because some boron atoms are further away from the other non-carbon atoms, the glow continues for up to a minute. The Smithsonian's experiment has advanced the knowledge of diamonds for mineralogists around the world. Science has explained the Hope Diamond's inner secrets, which only leaves the curse. Back in 1910, Pierre Cartier had told Evelyn Walsh McLean his amazing story. The explorer who'd stolen the Hope Diamond from the eye of a Hindu goddess and been ripped apart by wild dogs. The French queen who'd worn it and lost her head. The families who'd been ruined, all struck down by the legendary curse. America's Library of Congress houses an extensive collection of books and newspapers, which historian Richard Curran used to research the origins of the Hope's curse. The more he found out, the more holes there seemed to be in Cartier's story. There wasn't even any evidence that Marie Antoinette had worn it, and the story of the curse seemed relatively recent.
Remarkable jewel, a hoodoo. Hope diamond has brought trouble to all who own it. You know, when it was sold to the McLeans, the New York Times on the front page said, "This is an ancient curse." As I started to go through the historical records, I did not find any mention of any curse of the Hope diamond before the 1900s. So then I looked at the newspapers in this very room in the Library of Congress in 1901, 1902, 1903. No mention of a curse. And as I got to 1908, you started getting the first mentions of at least unlucky nature of the diamond.
Curran applied a further piece of historical investigation. If the curse was real, its owners could be expected to have lived short lives. But did they? Curran went back through the records and investigated all their lifespans.
The average life expectancy of people that have owned the Hope diamond, direct owners, is about 72 years old. That is quite a long lifespan, considering that we're talking about people, you know, like Tavernet and kings of France that lived in the 17th and 18th centuries. You find that actually people that have owned the Hope diamond live extraordinarily long lives, longer than the average.
There was one overwhelming conclusion. The curse was an invention, the brainchild of Pierre Cartier, who fabricated the tallest of stories to whet Evelyn Walsh McLean's appetite for the diamond. And there was an even more delicious twist. Cartier had lifted the idea from a Victorian novel, The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, the first great detective story in world literature. In The Moonstone, a large yellow diamond is stolen from a temple in India, bringing misfortune and unhappiness to all who own it.
And here's this fanciful tale, and then he applies the central theme about it being stolen from the eye of an idol, and he applies it to the Tavernet story. So now it's Tavernet stealing the diamond. And the diamond's curse, so to speak, travels through the generations from Tavernet to the kings of France, to Marie Antoinette, to the Hope family.
Cartier's chutzpah had transformed the Hope diamond into a gem with a legendary curse, creating a brilliant line in sales patter.
There's just something so attractive about the idea of a cursed item, and novelists know this and playwrights know this. Wilkie Collins' novel The Moonstone is all about the amazing power that a single object can have to disrupt people's lives. It's a really attractive idea. We want to believe in curses. Everybody likes a good conspiracy or a mystery to unravel.
If there's no basis for a curse, it does remain true that some of the Hope diamond's owners suffered misfortune. But there might be a perfectly rational explanation for that too.
I've got my own theory about the curse. I don't believe that everybody who owns the diamond was touched by sort of magical powers that ruined their lives. But I do believe that if you're in a position to own one of the most famous diamonds in the world, then in some senses you are unfortunate, because everybody's going to want to take that diamond off you. You're going to have a lot of money. You're perhaps not going to know what to do with that or with your life. You're going to struggle with life if you're in a position to own an immensely valuable diamond, I think. You're going to find it difficult to live a happy, contented, simple and good life on Earth. So diamonds are not a girl's best friend. You're much better off without them, in my opinion.